got that nerd rage. Nerd rage.
Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of Nerd Rage. My name is Long from Geek News Network. This show is brought to you by Geek News Network. Basically, just before we begin, I just want to explain what we're doing here. I'm going to be picking a random topic out of this bowl right here. These topics are brought to you guys from our fans on the site and as well as our Facebook page about topics that make you rage in the nerd and geek world. And basically we're just going to get 5 minutes for our esteemed guests to talk about it, discuss it, and rage about it. So I just want to go ahead and introduce our guests to my left here. First off is Negative Steve Mandel.
I'm filled with caffeine and rage.
And we got Aaron Gardy of HouseOfHaHa.com.
How's it going? I'm filled with caffeine.
And then we got Joshua Silverman of Constantly Calibrating.
No caffeine for me at this time.
Alright, well, we'll go ahead and begin. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the first topic, and then I'm going to read it out, and then we'll have our guests talk about it. They'll have 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next. First topic here. First one.
Where do we begin?
Digital versus analog. Alright.
Okay. So we're talking digital, this is digital comics versus analog, or just digital versus analog in general?
No, we're talking DVDs versus VHS.
Yes. No. This one is open to interpretation. So let's go ahead and, since we're in a comic book store, so I forgot to mention, this is brought to you live from Gotham City Comics and Coffee. So we want to thank you, them, for the space and the time. So since we're in the comic book store, let's talk about comic books. Comic books, digital versus paper.
I've come around at this time because I was actually very anti-digital. You know, comics for me have been something you held, you smelled. You know, there's nothing better for me than the smell of an old comic, which is probably a mold of some type you shouldn't be inhaling. But I just, you know, it's part of the. There's a tactile experience reading comics that, for me, is part of what I enjoy. It's hard to give up. So coming out of digital comics for me was a difficult concept. However, until I read some of the Mark Waid stuff he put out, and actually, Thrill Bit, yeah, and I actually seen how the digital comics as a format, you know, rather than most digital comics you see where before was they would take a scan of the comic and put the image, and then you basically just kind of scroll through it like you're looking through a comic book. Whereas the new digital comics, like Mark Waid's doing it, it's almost more cinematic. So as you're rolling down the images, as you're scrolling down the page, the images are actually designed to reveal things in the story in that medium of the screen. So in that aspect, if that's the direction they're going, I'm really for that. I think I've come around on that. I've flipped my nerd rage.
Steve?
I prefer analog. I prefer actually owning whatever it is that I have. But I have nothing against digital as long as it doesn't take my floppy comics away from me. I mean, I've never really understood the rage on this issue. It's not like, you know, once we go digital, analog will never happen again. If they're both in existence, then I don't see what the problem is.
Might have been part of that rage was just from, I think it's fear. You know, we don't like, as much as we as geeks and nerds, as we like new things, like we don't like change. We don't embrace it all that well. We get in a certain comfort zone and we don't like moving out of that little house. You know what I mean? And I think that, I think there was a lot of uncertainty. You know, I know for comic book shops thought that, you know, digital was going to replace, you know, what we throw in the nose at the comic book shop and things like that. But I think it's expanded.
What about you, Josh?
No, I have to agree with both points. For me, when I looked at comics, I've been out of comics for a very long time, and I'm trying to get back into it now. But I think of it more for just books in general. I get really annoyed about the idea of Kindles and things like that, and because I love the smell of a book, I like sitting and being able to read. But over the last couple of months, I was given a Kindle randomly by someone, and you know, I kind of like. I prefer reading and flipping through the pages and that smell, but there's some things that reading digital is not that big of a deal to me. When it comes to comics, I'd rather be flipping through the pages and taking the time and flipping back and trying to see, okay, what's this? But for certain things, I can see digital being a viable thing as long as it doesn't take away from this whole experience.
So we're saying pretty much like our hearts, we had to go on the side of what rage on the spectrum we lean towards. We're still saying paper good. Digital, okay.
Paper good, digital
Paper good,
tolerable.
Paper, good. digital as long as it doesn't take away my
The one
favorite.
problem with analog over digital is that people always forget to rewind their analog media, whereas digital media, you don't have that problem. We were talking VHS versus DVD.
We are talking about VHS, yes. Well, from my aspect, I actually differ from you guys, is that I'm a little bit more high-tech. And I like...
Heretic!
Well,
Had to get some rage.
of course, you had to. Well, for me, I like saving space because I just don't like carrying a ton of crap around, really. And to have like a Kindle or an iPad, be able to store thousands of my books in there, that's like friggin' 10 boxes of books that I don't need to carry around every time I move. And then we look at comics, same difference, and DVDs, same difference, I can put all my stuff on a simple little hard drive. I don't have to carry around all that, that useless stuff in a box. And right now it's sitting in a storage shed actually with all my DVDs. So
You bring up a good point. I got a buddy of mine who's actually moving from California out here, and that was one of the issues actually. Is he's going through his stuff. He's looking at his half a dozen long boxes, and actually having to make a decision. Going, am I going to bring these? Am I going to invest in an air-conditioned storage unit, or am I going to sell my collection? And I guess in that aspect, having a digital effect, I can just put it in my phone and carry it.
I mean, and that's, I guess, because I'm part of the, Gen Y generation. We're all high tech.
You kids today.
We all, we love our technology. And yeah, one day when the apocalypse happens and all technology becomes useless, then yeah, we're screwed.
You'll come crying to us for your comic books.
Right.
See, I'm of exactly opposite of you. Is that I have plenty of space, but I don't want to put things on my hard drive because that takes space away from my pirated music at home.
Hey, I completely agree.
So you have to have a balance.
And that actually brings us to time. On to the next topic. We'll leave it at that. All right.
Final thoughts, pirated music and porn.
Final thoughts, perfect. Pirated music and porn. Alright, so next topic from one of our fans says there, I've always maintained that lovable scoundrel though he may be, Han Solo drew first under the table at Mos Eisley Spaceport when Greedo was sitting across from him at the cantina. Do I hear dissent? What do you think? So, did Han shoot first?
Is there anybody that doesn't think that Han shot first other than George Lucas?
My one feeling on this is it's not so much that Hans shot first, it's that Greedo never shot at all. Is my big thing the original thing, so why is there even a debate of the shooting first?
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Han did shot. He shot first. Why? Because I saw Star Wars in 1977. That's why. And Han shot first. Why did Han shoot first? Why? Because he was sitting in a bar that was surrounded by scum and villainy. And if you're not going to get shoot first, you're going to get shot. And that's what Greedo was going to do. So I guess, like Steve, is this a really debatable issue? The thing was, Han did shoot. And then he didn't, because George then wanted to change it because the fact it made Han look like a murderer, I guess, or put him in a negative light. So I think that's kind of the topic on that thing is, why do you care whether Han shot? Why is it important to us that Han didn't shoot? To the point where they actually, when they redid the trilogy, the original, that they actually made it where Greedo shot as a really bad shot.
Point blank range.
And then Han shot.
Well, Greedo can be excused for missing because it's hard to see past that side. Fills your peripheral.
Well, I think that the reason why there's even a debate is canon, because Bruce Lucas changed it.
Yeah, I think that's where the rage comes in. Not so much the shoot first or shoot lasters, but the fans versus George Lucas. And honestly, I'm not as huge a Star Wars fanboy as others, but I really enjoyed watching George just kind of doing his apoplectic fits, trying to explain himself and explain why all of us that watched it in 1977 were wrong. And that just really kind of amuses me, watching him just kind of, I'm just imagining George just, the internet, I hate you so much.
And you want to say is like, George, when you back up that fast, you should probably make a beeping noise. Because that's really what he did, and I think he did change the canon on it. He flipped it, and I think that's probably where the subject came up, and I guess that's there is those of us who saw Star Wars in its original format, and there is those of us who saw it post the late '90s, when they re-released them. And in that aspect, that's a different movie. If you look at that, and it's really that's one little tiny point, and you don't think about it much after that, but it's to fans because Han is such an important character. Like we don't give a crap about Luke; he's a whiny kid. Han is.
Yeah, because that small aspect it changes your perspective of how Han is.
Well, he does it. Let's put it there. Han shot first. He was going to kill Greedo before he got killed. Does that change your thought on Han? Do you think Han's a bad guy because he shot first?
Well, if Star Wars was a standalone movie on New Hope, then yeah, it might. But because you see his development as a character in the movies, then it changes. Of course, if he changed the story in Empire and Return, yeah, you might be viewed differently. But I think my perspective on it never changed because of Empire and Return.
So he went from murderer to scruffy scoundrel.
Exactly.
I know that there was a lot of rage when the special editions came out because how dare you go back and tinker with our favorite movies, and that was the one piece of the special edition that I think I didn't really care for. I mean, I understand that now that the technology is available, George wanted to go back and redo the effects that he wanted to do in the 70s, but just weren't available. And I even didn't have a huge problem with that horrible scene that they added in with Han and the Weight Watchers Jabba having the discussion. But then going back, because none of those changes really changed, none of that really changed the movie. Just going back and fundamentally changing a plot point like that to something that is so beloved to so many people is really heresy. I'll just use that word again.
And that's kind of why we're talking about this kind of stuff, because it's those things we feel passionate about, and we're excited about, and when we have a very distinct opinion. I mean, to say opinion and geek is kind of redundant.
Right, I agree. And that brings us to time on that topic, so we're going to move on to the next one.
All right. No porn drop on this one?
No porn drop on this one.
Porn and Star Wars don't mix.
The internet would beg to differ, sir.
Alright, another good topic from one of our fans. The endless argument that Superman could beat Batman in a fight by killing him with his superpowers. However, Superman does not kill. Now, I'm not saying Superman is not cool, but the fact that Batman doesn't have superpowers makes him infinitely cooler in my books. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that was definitively shown in Dark Knight Returns. Batman pretty much beat the crap out of Superman, and probably could have killed him had he wanted to, but that wasn't in his Bat plan.
All right.
Bat plus now equals.
It's a two-part question, kind of. So it's like it's saying the debate whether he could beat him.
Yeah. So the basic is can Superman beat Batman, and if so, why does he doesn't just use his superpowers to do so?
Okay, well,
but then at the same time, Superman doesn't kill. Same with Batman, right?
Yeah.
So how do you determine the winner?
but Batman will go to extremes to win that Superman won't, and I think that's what the funny difference is that because the fact that Batman doesn't have those powers, he will take any advantage he can to win. And if you've got an obvious one like rocks that cost $1 million, and you happen to be a playboy from Baxter with a bunch of cash laying around. You can do that kind of stuff, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think do you think they'll ever revisit that? I mean, come back to just have have a brawl going Batman versus Superman, have it out, kind of like a Captain America versus Tony Stark did.
They've done that hundreds of times, and I think it always comes down to if Batman is prepared, Batman can beat anyone. If Superman just is flying through Gotham and is like, "Oh, I hate Batman. He made Han Solo shoot last," and just decides to hit him, then Batman has no chance. I think it just becomes what are the circumstances of the scenario.
If Batman knows his ground and he knows what he's doing, and that's, as you said, he knows what's coming. He gets time to think it through. He can make a plan to take out virtually anybody.
Right.
But if Superman flips out and decides to punch him in half for some reason, over.
And that's just it, because no matter how you look at it, when it really comes down to the physical fighting, Silky's going to win every time. But because of the defining the character and who he is, there's lines and things he won't cross. It's kind of like shooting first. Superman won't shoot first, and if he did, you're like, that's not Superman, so therefore it's not a valid argument. And I think that, going like you said, Batman will always find a way to win, and that's why Batman, I think, is always going to be the cooler character, because he's more interesting in that way, and will always be the guy to come out on top.
And generally, when they have fought in comic books, like for instance, I think they had a battle in Hush, in the Hush series. But generally, one or the other of them has to be doped up or under mind control, or in Hush, if I remember correctly, Poison Ivy had kryptonite-laced mind control drugs, so you're at a disadvantage right there. So generally, like I was saying, it's all scenario-based, and generally, one of them, in order for them to be fighting in the first place, one of them has to be under control or have some unusual circumstance that's going to put them off their game anyways.
With the only exception being, I think, that goes against that scenario is probably Dark Knight.
Right.
Because Dark Knight is really the one of just like, I'm making a stand, they're in conflict, you're in my way, get out of my way. Which I'm excited about, because they actually releasing that new Dark Knight animated movie.
Yeah.
And it's a part one, so part one seems to be the first part of Batman coming back, and the part two, I'm betting, is going to be him fighting Superman. So actually, that will be on the massive.
Well, now that I'm thinking of it, if we're going to use Dark Knight Returns as the thing, Batman did defeat Superman on his own. Batman had help. He had one-armed Green Arrow, and he had weird girl back Robin. So, but again, I think that goes to part of his preparation. If they hadn't been there, I'm sure Batman could have put together a Bat Archery bot or something like that.
Here's the thing: if you're going to go fight Superman, aren't you going to isn't everybody going to bring kryptonite? I mean, that's the motive for his villains. When they show up fighting him, they're going to bring kryptonite. So I think Batman showing kryptonite is not far beyond Superman fighting logic.
Well, Superman actually gave Batman some kryptonite at one point, just to prevent, in case Phantom Zone villains show up, or Superman gets controlled by Poison Ivy or any of that.
Matter of fact, there's just extending that versus Batman thing, which makes him so interesting, is that there's that Batman Doom animated that just came out, where essentially Batman had contingency plans for taking out the entire Justice League.
Right.
And there's that great scene in it, and they're like, how could you do that? You betrayed our trust, and we wouldn't take you down. And Batman is like, well, you're a damn fool. Because we're the most powerful beings on the planet, and someone has to keep us in check. At the end of Batman's whole thing was, what's the contingent on taking you down? He was like, well, the Justice League. You guys all have to get there to stop me.
And that brings us to time, actually, so let's stop it.
These are fun.
Alright.
I'm liking the topic so far. I wish I had more to say, but
Well, I think it's the cool thing is you can jump back and forth. So we got each thing to talk about. Some things in our digital house, other things aren't.
exactly.
Okay, this is a good question. I like this. All right, so what was faster, the Millennium Falcon or the Enterprise D?
Faster. Okay.
By the way, that O means that's nerd rage.
That's nerd contemplation.
It is.
It's two different universes, so I mean you can't really compare because they're two different sciences.
You're talking about warp drive versus hyperspeed. I know what warp drive is. Hyperspeed might as well be. I mean, until I guess unless it's going to be some form of metachlorians to define it, because that's the whole thing. Star Wars doesn't define their technology. Yeah.
Well, he did make the Kessel Run in 4 parsecs, which
12
isn't 12 parsecs.
12 parsecs.
12 parsecs.
Like I said, I'm not a huge
Get
Star
that
Wars
right.
fanboy. There's rage right there. He did make the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, which isn't a valid measure of time. So it can't be compared, because the Star Trek universe, they actually have to do things in like hours and days.
I guess is that like saying like I can get to 7-Eleven in 2 blocks? You're like, I can get to 7-Eleven in 1 block. Well, you made the 7-Eleven run in 1 block.
I live behind the 7-Eleven. I just jump over a fence out there.
When I'm driving, I rate time in compact discs. It takes me approximately 12 compact discs to get to LA from here.
I like it.
Well, then I mean,
that's off topic.
I guess which is faster, Enterprise D or the Falcon?
Enterprise.
I'm going to Enterprise D.
I would have to go Enterprise D just because the Enterprise has, what, 400 people that are working to make it as fast and efficient as possible, and the Millennium Falcon has Chewie. And I no disrespect to Chewie, I'm letting that Wookiee win, but one Wookiee versus 400 Starfleet guys, I'm gonna have to go with Starfleet.
It's kind of this. You're building a house. Do you want a team of engineers or do you want Bigfoot?
Okay, well, okay.
No, he's good if a hammer, Bigfoot.
Well, we're not. I think we're missing the point here. We're not talking about the engineers itself, but the ship itself. So let's say on impulse power, Enterprise D, and on normal speed on the Millennium Falcon, which is faster? For me, I'd say the Millennium Falcon has more maneuverability because it's a smaller ship. It's designed for combat, whereas D was designed for exploration. It was not designed for combat.
I'm in the same boat as that
It's not
because the Enterprise D and most ships in Star Trek, most of the cruisers and science vessels are built more like the old sailing boats where they have to turn and they take their time. We don't see that in the show, but that's the mechanics of it. But then I want to give it to the Millennium Falcon purely because of what you're saying. It's not defined.
Exactly.
But how their movement is so small ship, not defined. It's magic. Like Star Wars is magic in space. That's a huge. It's fantasy in space. That is a huge aspect.
The Enterprise D has a special secret weapon that you're not thinking of. It can detach the saucer section.
That is
then
true.
all of the Millennium Falcon's maneuverability advantages are gone.
Fair. Okay, that can be true.
I'm going to extend on Steve's point and the fact that one has an engineer, one has a Wookiee, because I think that how many times has the Falcon
Wookiees
broken
can
down?
be engineers, you damn racist.
What? Nerd rage. I think that how many times in general the Falcon breaks down? For the average movie, there was always an issue if something wasn't working. Now, granted, the Enterprise has that issue too, but they're like, we'll have that done in 5 minutes, Captain. When's that ready to be Han? And he's like, I don't know. I sent Chewie, who's very capable and has equal rights to work in any journeyman employment he sees fit. I'm not limiting anyone from Kashyyyk. But no angry letters.
From Kashyyyk.
From Kashyyyk. They're all RARs. But I think that probably in general that the Enterprise is a better maintained ship than the Falcon, and in that sense it's going to be a faster ship when it comes down to a battle. I'm putting myself in Enterprise. Even despite, you're right, maneuverability.
So we got Enterprise 1.
Well, I want to make one more point on the Enterprise, is that the Enterprise has Leslie Crusher, who has the powers of the Traveler, so they can just go wherever they want to quantize themselves in the universe just through the power of his mind.
Steve, that's Enterprise 2.
Enterprise.
I'm gonna still go with the Falcon just based on. I'm still going with not magic here.
It's magic. All right, for me, because like you said, I'm agreeing with Joshua, because Star Wars is magic, whereas Star Trek is kind of real science. I'm going to go with magic. I'm going to go with magic.
See, that's almost another topic we can get on right there, is the fact, when they try to explain stuff in Star Wars, we got angry midichlorians.
Oh, there we go.
Because Star Wars, we like going for the ride.
That'll be another topic for another day.
That's a whole different nerd rage right there.
We're going to go move to the next topic.
That's tough. We'll have to break the bowl for next time.
That's a whole half hour episode in there.
Next one. PC versus Mac. There's a lot of topics in there, but we'll just go with PC versus Mac. There's console wars, Nintendo versus Sega, Xbox PlayStation, but PC versus Mac. How about it, guys?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're just looking for a nice toy for your kids, then a Mac is much better. If you're looking to actually do anything or get anything done, then you're going to want to go with PC.
I'm sorry, guys. That's the truth. Macs are fun to play with. They do cool, neat things. They are more Star Trek in their, magic. They do stuff. But if you want to expand anything with them, PCs, in my opinion, always better. Our cameraman is really. There's some nerd rage happening behind the camera you can't see that someone wants to comment on. I can tell.
That steam coming out of his ears.
Is it because you love PC so much? Is that why? Really? I thought you were a Windows or an Apple guy.
No, I'm a PC person just purely because gaming reasons. It's just you can do more with it. There's more options. Sure, Mac is trying to bring in more gaming, but they're focusing more their gaming on the iPads and the iPhones and things things like that. And for the actual desktop or laptop kind of thing, that's just not where you go for gaming stuff. Sure, productivity maybe, but
The Mac is a good entry-level computer. I mean, I'm a geek. I've been using PCs forever. I like building my own. I like the ability to, I need more RAMs or ROMs or bits or bytes or something. I can just go down to the store and buy some and pop it in. If I want a floppy drive, I can put a floppy drive on my PC. If I want a floppy drive for a Mac, you're out of luck.
Kids, ask your parents what a
I
floppy
was about
drive
to
is.
say we need to define that. That and VHS. Look it up on Google.
We'll have a little pop-up on what that means.
Older
We used to watch movies on bricks.
what is it? What did you just say? RAMs and ROMs?
RAMs and ROMs and bits and bobs and stuff.
I feel like that's like the beginning of a song, like a Broadway musical about building a
These
PC.
are a few of my favorite things.
I agree with these guys,
This is
but for the aspect of, I like both in what they're made to do. Whereas PC, you can do pretty much anything with a PC. True, gaming, music, audio, whatever. You can do anything with a PC. But I guess for me, I like the Mac in the sense that I DJ, I do podcasting, I do audio, I do video, and I think a Mac has more capability starting off. When you buy it, it has all the capability for you to do pro audio, pro filming right out of the box. Whereas with PC, you don't have that ability. You have to buy expensive software. You have to upgrade your system to be able to handle that software. So I guess you kind of have to weigh on what you want to use with the PC and Mac.
Well, let me ask you this, Mom. Which model of HP Macintosh laptop are you using right here for this podcast?
I am not. This is only for reference. I'm not recording anything off of it.
Rod is HP.
Heretic.
Rest my case.
All right, on to the next topic.
HP to a Mac fight.
And that's why it's good to be the boss of GNN.
Exactly. We're moving on to the next topic. Okay, we're back to Star Wars. Okay, pet peeves.
Of course we are.
People mistaking Star Wars for Star Trek and vice versa.
Oh,
all right.
Die in
That-
fire.
That makes me laugh. There was the series of where they would have a picture of one guy and then a quote from a different movie and then attribute it to a third person. That was hilarious.
it just, I mean, how do you not know the difference? They're not the same. And I've met people. I mean, the rare occasions where I've had this conversation, and it's just, I want to commit a hate crime. It's just so
All right.
that they don't. They think they're like, what's that guy with the pointy ears? I'm like, which one? They're like,
Yoda.
We're talking about Star Wars, and they call him Yoda, and I'm like, you mean Mr. Spock? They're like, yeah, the Doctor dude. I'm like, no, that's not Dr. Spock. That was the baby dude. This is Mr. Spock.
The Dr.
Shut up, my
Spock,
brain there
Mr.
for a
Spock
moment.
thing really, it still sends people into a rage after 40 years.
And there was, and this was, I had this happen. It's been that we were just talking about that Free Enterprise movie. People call Star Trek, they call it Star Trek. Rather than like what a train goes on, opposed to like what the Enterprise goes on. That's just one of those things. That gets me, and it's I can't even talk. That's how much this enrages me.
Well, it's funny because I've never encountered this before. I never encountered a person that didn't know the difference, and if they did know the difference, they admit it.
Smart people is why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hang around with smart people, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think if you're just getting into these Star Wars, Star Trek thing, I mean, those are two of the big bases of fandom.
Exactly.
So if you're hanging out in fandom, most people are not going to make that mistake. You get that mistake from people's moms and girlfriends and, people you run into. Oh, you like all that Star Trek stuff with the Yodas and whatnot? Those are the people that you need to strain.
I get it. Gotcha.
No, my one experience with that was at a friend's birthday party when I was, I don't know, I want to say like 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, and just chatting about different things, a few Star Wars, a few Star Trek, and stuff like that, and then one person made the most basic mistake, simply said Star Trek instead of Star Wars, and the kid's birthday party just goes white and just starts saying, get out of my house.
The party just stops.
The party just stops, and he's just like, get out, just starts hitting this person and throwing up. That is my one real world experience, and nothing was resolved, and it was pretended that never happened. Wow. Like that never happened. Kind of situation. I even had to check later on when I became friends with a few of these people on Facebook years later. I'm like, did this happen? Because we never talked about it.
You're like, oh, you're that guy.
Yeah.
Screw you. Unfriend.
I think everybody, I mean, going beyond just Star Trek and Star Wars, everybody has a topic that they love and that they will correct you or get enraged if you get it wrong. I mean, if you start mentioning a superhero's inaccuracies near me, I will correct you without even thinking about it. I apparently made an inaccurate quote from Star Wars, and someone over here jumped down my throat 10 minutes ago. So we all have them. I mean, I think that's part of being in. It's just, you know, who and to what degree and how much social skill and self-restraint do you have.
And that's the bottom line. We're passionate about this stuff is because we care about it. It's important to us. And
I agree.
And if you're gonna do something, do it right. Know the difference between Yoda and Mr. Spock. I mean, one's a commander, one's
As
one's a
Gandalf
not.
said, do or do not, there is no try.
Oh,
There we go.
Son of a bitch.
Well, that brings us time for the show. So I just want to wrap it up. Any final thoughts, guys? Before we wrap this up?
Before we wrap it up, I just want to say Aquaman is the worst creature ever.
There we go. All right, Aaron.
I'm just gonna second that. Just go with Aquaman is the worst creature ever, and he should be recycled.
I have no opinions one way or other about Aquaman, but for the purposes of coming back on this show for next episode, I hate Aquaman.
Agreed. Okay. Well, we want to just thank you guys for spending the time to be with us today. Nerd Rage about these topics you guys have brought us to us. We're sorry we couldn't get to the other ones, but we'll have to save it for the next episode. This is a Traveling Bros show, so expect us at another comic store or nerd hobby store near you. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for coming out. Geek News Networks signing out. Long
Stay
and
angry.
They say I nerd rage, I say they don't understand. Keep talking trash, bitch, I'm gonna have to ban you from my chat room. And I can hardly think, but I'm gonna have to slap Jar Jar Binks and slam George Lucas's head in a car door for far more